Good evening. This is Maestro with the Dawn of War 2 Retribution Elite Modcast. Today, we have a Best-of-5 Faction War series between the Eldar and the Tyranids. Our first player will be Ben, 1993, playing as the Lord General. This is a defense and support hero for the Imperial Guard. He is a squad. He has a Stormtrooper retinue that can reinforce. Next up, it's going to be TheTenso, playing as the Inquisitor. Inquisitor is a spellcasting hero with control and manipulation. Can also become a tank if you so kit her out. And this is also an interesting skin. Finally, for the Imperial Guard, it's going to be Adila, playing as the Lord Commissar, slightly tanky melee hero with a free energy shield and the ability to execute his own troops to make them fight harder. Their opponents, it's going to be a bunch of Tyranids. We're going to start off with YZ, playing as the Hive Tyrant, tanky, destructive melee hero that walks through cover and cannot be suppressed. Lots of tankiness, lots of disruption, lots of damage. It's going to be RedReVenge up next, playing as his signature trademark Ravener Alpha, who's right now doing absolutely nothing. He's a mobility commander with tunnels that he can make around the map and primarily fights in ranged, at least to start out. And then finally, it's going to be AssMan, playing as the Lictor Alpha, infiltrating melee assassin commander with displacement and a lot of damage. So then, for our faction war right here, you know, with the faction wars, of course, some people have learned that there is a 500-hour minimum rule for faction war participants. It's not completely inflexible, but it's basically to ensure that faction war play is mid-level at minimum. And there are definitely times when we get more mid-level players. However, in this series, we've kind of lucked out. All of these are quite strong players, so we should be in for a good faction war. And I'm also excited about the matchup itself. Late game, we definitely get tons of Carnifexes running around for the Tyranids. We can probably expect quite a few Leman Russes out of the Imperial Guard. I'm also looking forward to the possibility of a few rocket runs and Manticores. The rocket run's not always a guarantee, because sometimes you do have, particularly the Commissar likes to use his Flare Global, which is quite useful. In this case, we are going to have a Sentinel chasing off the Hormagaunts, and here we have a Lord General bashing a generator all by himself. Just his Stormtrooper retinue supporting him. He does that quite slowly. Hammer of the Witches will target this Ravener Alpha, completely stunned, but not a huge amount of damage to follow that up, and he will get into a tunnel, even though visually it looked like he was still outside of it. Meanwhile, down here, well, it's a little bit of a slow start, actually, to this faction war. Let's see what this Hive Tyrant might do about it. Ooh, he went for Bioplasma. Gives him a ranged skill shot capable of doing area of effect damage, as well as doing some knockback. Goes for it right there. Does connect onto the Guardsman. Not going to be enough to force off this player right here. This is Ben. Ben going with triple Guardsman along with a Sentinel. There are definitely some things I like about this. Normally, getting triple Guardsman isn't necessarily that common, but, I mean, it just gives you a fair amount of damage. And although it's four squads without even spending any power, the Guardsmen aren't particularly expensive to field. Meanwhile, we do have Adila with a little bit more standard with the double Guardsman, the single Sentinel, then he'll get Catachans. So both Tenso and Adila with the double Guardsman, single Sentinel into a tier 1.5 unit. Ooh, look at that, though. That is going to be the crossbow bolt pistol out of the Tenso. Gives him that crippling volley ability, and that's why it looks like those units had a bunch of needles on top of them. And meanwhile, a squad is going to go down. That was the heavy weapon team from the Tenso. Crippling volley actually just pins targets in place. It's actually, you know, quite a good ability. I don't know. I mean, it would definitely be good against the Hormagaunts. Not sure how desirable it would actually be against the Termagants. Hormagaunts try to get in range, but they see the approach of the Catachan Devil, so they will back up. Flesh Hook used by the Lictor Alpha, only on a single Guardsman model. Not the highest value there. For the Lictor Alpha, I think especially if he is close to a Commissar, Flesh Hook would probably be best used on the Commissar himself. A Hormagaunt Brood will be taken down. I think that was for AssMan. We do have a Sentinel. That was a very curious Sentinel stomp. That was probably just a mistake. Probably thought he was using a different unit entirely. But that was a Sentinel stomp in the middle of the nowhere. Of the nowhere, even. Lord General has some grenade launchers. He's already inside the garrison. Gonna do some damage to those termagants. That grenade launcher will do somewhat decent damage, but they'll move away from him. Actually gets a model kill from inside the garrison. Hormagaun's kind of waiting for him to eventually get out and seeing if maybe they can get a kill on him. Hive Tyrant's going to be pretty low here, but I think there are also so many units here for the Tyranids that it will nevertheless probably be a win for YZ. Oh, Hormagaun's even just banging on the building, which they don't actually do that effectively. Lord General will retreat. His retinue member will be killed, but he himself will be fine. So Raveners will get the decap on this contested victory point. Victory points in the lead for our Imperial Guard players. I do think the Imperial Guard can have pretty good pressure in Tier 1. Especially in this matchup, you will have that Sentinel shooting at a lot of Termagants and Hormagaunts, and they're going to have trouble kind of getting out-traded by the Sentinel as long as the Sentinel micro is handled correctly by the blue team. And so far, we have no lost Sentinels, which, if anything, that shouldn't be an achievement. That should be expected at this level of play and in Tier 1. But at least we haven't seen any Sentinels taken down prematurely. So as long as they kind of cycle out the Sentinels, make the Sentinel tank damage, then let the Sentinel get repairs, we should generally see, like, out trades for the Imperial Guard. There we go with a Flesh Hook on the Lord Commissar. He does activate his energy shield immediately, but I mean, even that energy shield, not particularly strong, and he will have to get forced off out of there. Catachan Devil's a little bit far forward. Ravener Brood Burrow is quite on point, and yet they will actually retreat out of there immediately. It was a very good burrow. I think what happened was that the Tyranid players realized that they were losing the engagement overall, and the Raveners were going to soon find themselves without support. On this side of the map, though, we will have a 1 engagement for the Tyranids. Ben having a little bit of trouble holding the line here. Now, I mean, the triple guardsman does give you certainly a fair amount of ranged firepower, but typically, the way things work, the baseline Tier 1 squads that don't require any power usually don't have much utility out of the gate, whereas the Tier 1.5 squads are usually offering some kind of utility. They're usually offering something more than just damage. So that might be part of why, actually, Ben 1993 might be having trouble, because he doesn't have the control of something like the Heavy Weapon Team or the disruption of the Catachan Devils. All right, meanwhile, we have, looks like we're going to have an engagement right here. Tyranid's actually kind of backing off. We have the Warrior Brood here upgraded with the Thorax Swarm. Actually something that could be used, at least with the way the rules of this game work, that should be usable. The Electroshock Grub, that is, on the Sentinel. Traditionally, you can use Melta Bombs on Sentinels. They will be slowed, and that is a way to try to, like, take them out. Barb Strangler Warrior as well. Barb Strangler also something that should be pretty good against Imperial Guard. Wow! We already have a Deadly Jump, which grants the Assault Leap ability out of the Lictor Alpha. A very redundant ability. Oh! That is one trapped Sentinel. I don't know if this Sentinel does not make it out alive. That was actually pretty crazy how that Sentinel got trapped there. So finally, we do see one Sentinel down. That Sentinel... we are in Tier 2 now, so now it's a little bit more expected that some Sentinels may go down. But even there, it was actually crazy how it was really just trapped and swarmed by the Tyranids. Meanwhile, we do have 2 Sentinels still alive. Now, although at this point of the game, I don't feel that a Sentinel dying is particularly unusual, I think it would actually be really, really nice to keep the Sentinel alive, particularly against Tyranids. Because I think the Sentinel missile launcher, which... you know, it kind of has its ups and downs in terms of how well it performs against different races. Tyranids are actually a race where I feel like the Missile Launcher Sentinel can actually get a lot of value. Those frag missiles on things like Termagants, I think are going to be great, especially considering our Tyranid players did go for some pretty Termagant-heavy builds. We have a total of 5 Termagant Broods out on the field, and again, I think those frag missiles out of the Sentinels will be great against them. Frag missiles going in, seemingly kind of missing a little bit. Heavy Turret will also be put out on the field. Heavy Turret gets a nice burst damage shot on the Raveners, and one of those models will be killed. Meanwhile, Guardsmen are now in melee with the Warriors. Crippling volley is used, however, so the warriors will just retreat out of there. So yeah, there's that crossbow bolt pistol. What other upgrades do we have? We've already seen the grenade launcher on the Lord General, granting him the move ability, which is actually an ability I like very much. It is something that, when it's used, it actually looks quite humorous, the way you'll just see the squads kind of speeding around with the Lord General. It looks particularly humorous with guardsmen, but I would say it's probably a little bit more effective with things like Catachan Devils, maybe, well, actually I meant to say Ogrins, maybe also Catachan Devils. We're going to see some Stormtroopers out of both the TheTenso and Adila. I think that is also something that's going to be quite good against much of the Tyranid armies at this point. It's a lot of range damage, and the Assault Kit Stormtroopers also having extended range means that they can outrange the Raveners, they can outrange the Termagants. Going to be an autocannon out of the heavy weapon team from the TheTenso. Autocannon also something. Yeah, so I mean, in general, we're definitely seeing a lot of the options that Imperial Guard have against the Tyranids, and a lot of them are working out quite well. But we'll certainly keep out a look for what good options the Tyranids have. The Barb Strangler Warrior being one of them. A lot of retreats happening in this engagement. We are seeing a lot of plasma gun upgrades by our Imperial Guard players. Those plasma guns primarily for trying to pop some of the Warrior Brood models, trigger those Synapse backlashes. Also going to be highly effective against the Tyrant Guard right here, except for when it goes into shield wall. Looks like, is that crippling volley again? There's so many las guns and flashlights going off that I can barely tell what's going on. Ravener's going to be getting out of here. Inquisitor pretty low. Tyrant Guard now isolated, goes into shield wall. It's going to count on support coming in pretty soon, so it can actually probably get out of shield wall pretty soon. The Inquisitor sticks around just a little bit too long with not enough health. Hell Fury Strike will be launched by the TheTenso, but I mean it was actually pretty easily disengaged by RedReVenge right here, so that Hell Fury Strike gets very little value. I'd say the most it does is probably just buy space to allow the revive. Create, or zone, rather. Alright, finally Tyranids will reapproach, try to give that Tyrant Guard the support that it needs. Hormagaunts will approach. Hormagaunts approaching, even scaring off the Sentinel a bit when the Sentinel could stomp. Sentinel might actually be looking for the stomp against the Raveners, and this is looking like a pretty big fight at this time. Zoanthrope shots going in on those Guardsmen, also going to make life pretty hard for the Guardsmen. So Zoanthrope, long-range artillery. We only have one Zoanthrope. I actually feel like the Zoanthrope is something that really could do very well here, and if anything, I'm surprised that we don't have more than just one Zoanthrope. Long-range artillery unit for the Tyranids. Generally just good again. I mean, it's good when your opponent has lots of ranged and relatively little melee. There's just not a whole lot in terms of the ability to close gaps by the Imperial Guard players, which is, I think, basically what the Zoanthrope would otherwise be weak to. Things like Assault Marines, especially, or equivalents that have more damage, like Storm Boys. Although I'd say we're seeing pretty ranged heavy army on both sides. We definitely have quite a few Raveners out on the field. 4 Raveners in total. Termagant heavy builds. This is also a time when I would... Oh, the Commissar is going to go down! I honestly would like to see at least one Manticore. Now, these are higher level players, and higher level players are generally a little bit more averse to the Manticore than mid-levels. Oh, grenade gonna go in, picks up 2 Ravener models, might actually kill the squad with some Stormtrooper fire, and indeed does. That's a nice win there, picked up by the TheTenso. So, yeah, high-level players tend to be a little bit more averse to the Manticore, in part because they know their opponents will be better at just, like, dodging it. Might be the end of this heavy turret right here, but I honestly still would like to see at least one player pick up a Manticore, especially since we have the TheTenso, who would probably be my choice for the player to get a Manticore because he has that crippling volley. He can use that crippling volley to set up Manticore strikes, and of course your opponent could just retreat out of it, but then you're forcing the retreat, which is good in its own way. Lord General does have the Carapace armor, granting him the Stand Firm ability, making his units immune to suppression. I think it's interesting to see that war gear that's primarily just a counter to the Barb Strangler. As a counter to the Barb Strangler warrior, it actually is very strong. And yeah, I mean, we do see one Barb Strangler warrior actually for every single Tyranid player. So actually it does make a lot of sense. If it weren't for the Barbed Strangler, I feel like I would more like to see like the damage reduction, the defense. Crossbow bolt pistol with that crippling volley goes in. Lictor Alpha might, no, he's not going to go down actually. Okay, a lot of big things going on right now. That is going to be another dead Sentinel. Oh no, quite sad. Only Ben 1993 Sentinel remains alive. Our first Leman Russ has also made it out on the field here. It's from Adila, and it's quickly upgrading to the Executioner Cannon. Now, the Executioner Cannon will be highly effective against all of the Tyranid infantry. That's a nice shot from the Zoanthrope. Executioner Cannon, highly effective against all Tyranid infantry. Doesn't matter what kind. It's also quite good against the Tyrant Guard. Going to be a little bit less effective against the Carnifex, but it won't be bad against the Carnifex. It will actually do quite good damage against the Carnifex, but normally you would want the Executioner Cannon if you're going for the raw AV. But in general, I'd say... Did I say Executioner? I think I meant Vanquisher. But anyway, a lot of area of effect abilities and shots going in on both sides. And the last Sentinel bites the dust. Very, very sad for Ben 1993 and TheTenso. At this point in the game, I actually wouldn't even say that those would be like big wins for the Tyranid players, because like it's hard to keep a Sentinel alive during for an entire game. It's expected that the Sentinel is going to die at some point. You at the very least want your Sentinel to survive throughout Tier 1. Then with the missile launcher, it can get some nice value in Tier 2. Come Tier 3, keeping a Sentinel alive might be more trouble than it's worth, and it's more of like a, I don't know, like a novelty reward if you can keep it alive in tier 3. Big Barbed Strangler shot goes in. Stabilizers activated. Is it stabilizers actually? No, it's Stand Firm. Stand Firm activated, but a little bit too late. Tyrant Guard's going to go down though. Activate Shield Wall. We still have the Leman Russ with the Executioner Cannon here, though. That can actually do plenty of damage to the Tyrant Guard as long as it's focused on. It could take out the Tyrant Guard. Yeah, I think one more volley might do it. Nope. Oh, finally it does happen. Tyrannoformation is also happening to the Guardsmen in retreat, but I don't think they will actually be caught too badly. Hell Fury Strikes going in as well. This Leman Russ actually getting a huge amount of work done. Baneblade will be coming out for Ben 1993. So what I was trying to say, I mean, obviously, you start out with a default battle cannon for the Leman Russ. You have your choice of going for the Vanquisher or the Executioner. Vanquisher generally more for anti-vehicle because it has long range and higher overall DPS than the Executioner, I'm pretty sure. Although not by much. The Executioner, however, still actually does very good anti-vehicle damage. It's just that it has a bit shorter range. So it's not quite as good for chasing down vehicles, even though it's not bad. Meanwhile, we are going to see the Vanquisher out of the ThenSo. Now this... the Vanquisher, as we see, it's actually only about a difference of slightly only... like, only about 3, like slightly less than 3 increase in DPS compared to the Executioner. But more like 2.5. But again, it's more about the long range on the Vanquisher that makes it ideal for vehicles. Like even if you think you're trying to get your vehicle out of there, Leman Russ can shoot from very, very long range. Actually has longer range than Predators, looted tanks. Is beaten out by the Fire Prism, which is of course supposed to be a artillery unit anyway. Barbed Strangler shot goes in from the Carnifex. That Barbed Strangler Carnifex does massive area of effect damage. Commissar Lord, or rather Lord Commissar, he's got the Fist of Brachus, but what I'm more excited about is the Emperor's Wrath. So we didn't actually see, we haven't seen just an actual Manticore, but the Emperor's Wrath is basically the same thing. It basically turns your Commissar into a Manticore. Oh, Barbed Strangler Warrior will go down. Electroshock Rub on the Vanquisher Leman Russ. Meanwhile, some more Tyranids going to come around from the side, taking on this Executioner Leman Russ. Executioner Leman Russ also has an Electroshock Rub put on it. Both Leman Russes. Oh, this one Leman Russ, it might go down. It's getting pretty close. Venom Brood is not focusing on the Leman Russ, but that Leman Russ will be taken down. Bit rough for Adila right there. Losing that Leman Russ. Baneblade, however, is making sure, is that going to be Baneblade, however, as I said, just making sure the Imperial Guard players are able to maintain control of the contested victory point, but we are going to see our Tyranid players get a back cap with AssMan's Lictor Alpha right here. While I'm looking at that, I'm missing a big fight right here. Pergatus out of the Inquisitor. There is something about an Imperial Guard faction war that does really excite me. Oh, we might see a Guardsman squad go down right here. One. Oh, no, they don't get out. Oh. The Guard, they definitely have some very fun things in big team games. Pergatus from the Inquisitor is one of them. That Emperor's Wrath is as well. So, now, our Imperial Guard players actually have a very big victory point lead. Unfortunately for them, they have certainly much smaller armies at this time. They've been taking more losses. Some of those losses are expected, again, things like the Sentinel, and sometimes that's part of the problematic part about Imperial Guard, where there are certain units that they get where losing that unit is an eventuality, which is certainly true for the Sentinel. I would say it's also true for the Chimera, although we didn't actually see any Chimeras in this game. We're certainly going to see Leman Russes, though. Grenades go in. Look at the damage on those grenades right on that Hormigaunt Brood. I mean, it would actually... We saw how much that first volley did. It would have only taken 3 volleys to wipe out the entire squad. So a nice burst damage there on those grenades. What other upgrades do we have? We do have fully upgraded Inquisitor. Also has the Inquisitorial Mandate. Does give her invulnerability. Adila with that Commissar also decided to get the Flak Jacket, granting him the Inspire Terror ability. Normally, it is Inspire Courage, which can only be used on your units, but Inspire Terror actually allows you to execute enemy units, which debuffs them. Also does high single target damage. Can also be used to snipe targets on retreat. All right, we are going to see the approach here. This is RedReVenge coming in, but I think that's a Demolisher Cannon, or is it? No, that's the Emperor's Wrath, the off-map artillery from the Commissar. There was a retreat from those warriors, however, before they got hit by it, so they at least managed to weather that storm. Honestly, if they hadn't retreated, they might have been wiped entirely. Meanwhile, Swarmlord is moving up. Swarmlord will finish off one of the Guardsman squads. Big Pergatus coming out from the TheTenso. That Pergatus is actually such an awesome ability. It looks like... Okay. He's also going to use the Crippling Volley, locking that Venom Brood in place. They will have to back off. Meanwhile, this is... These Raveners think they're hidden, and perhaps they are. All right. They will get out of there. Double Carnifex is moving forward. These are two these are two Venom Cannon Carnifexes. Venom Cannon. I guess that's kind of like the equivalent of the Tyranid. It's like the Tyranid tank, so to speak. It's basically your tier 3 unit with vehicle armor and range damage. A little awkward in that respect, in that, it's a little bit certainly slower to walk than... Slower to move than a tank. Quite a bit more health, though. Swarmlord moving around. Looks like this is a repair bunker, however, keeping these Leman Russes just topped up. However, this bunker is not going to last too much longer. One more shot from the Barb Strangler Carnifex. I'm surprised he didn't stay just to get the last shot. Like, that was a pretty easy kill on that bunker. Wow, we see the Hive Tyrant here. He's fighting in ranged, and which is actually, this is not uncommon at all for a Hive Tyrant fighting against Imperial Guard to actually go full on ranged. He's going to try to use the Bonded Exoskeleton, the invulnerability from the Hive Tyrant to capture this point. I don't think it lasts long enough. The armor from the Imperial Guard proving to be pretty overwhelming at the moment, as we do have the double Baneblade coming out soon. Where's the second Baneblade? Not out here just yet. Looking to try to defend this point. We'll use the Demolisher Cannon. Demolisher Cannon misses. That was just micro. That was just micro by AssMan. Unfortunately for him, even though he microed away from the Demolisher Cannon, just the regular attacks from the Baneblade proved to be too much for those Raveners to capture the point. Is that going to be... That's a Creeping Barrage, not a Rocket Run. Oh, Baneblade goes down! Double Carnifex with the Venom Cannons. Also had double Venom Brood right there. Just proved to be too much damage for that Carnifex. Meanwhile, we are going to see Bioplasma's shot at the Vanquisher Leman Russ. Vanquisher Leman Russ getting some repairs from the Guardsman. I believe one of those Leman Russ is hit by the Focused Warp Blast of the Zoanthrope. Meanwhile, we are going to have Venom Broods chasing after these Zoanthropes, but Venom Brood do not snare, of course. So we do see the Leman Russes having a decent time just moving back from it. Hive Tyrant, once again, looking for that cap. He's at about half of his health, but currently he's not taking any damage as long as Invulnerability is active. The Guardsman will also be scared away from putting more pressure on the Hive Tyrant anyway. Meanwhile, it's a double cap for the Tyranids yet again. Lictor Alpha looking for a back cap. He's got those Scything Talons. Man, 81.25 DPS power melee. I don't remember this warrior being that powerful, but, you know, it is. Oh, here we finally have the Manticore. This Manticore actually needs to respect this Lictor Alpha. Like, we see the health is starting to go down. It's not heavy melee, it's just power melee, but it needs to respect that. I'm sure there are other things going on, but, like, I actually wonder if that Manticore might go down. I'm going to keep the Manticore selected to see what's happening there. Meanwhile, we are going to see a Barb Strangler shot go onto the autocannon heavy weapon team. Oh, but this Carnifex is going to go down in return. You know, the Manticore is still under some threat. It's still the Lictor Alpha is actually still chasing it. Luckily for the Manticore, it is getting repairs from the repair bunker, and now he does move the Manticore in a position where it's going to get some support. And the Lictor Alpha, I wonder if he'll even pay for that. Okay, he will not go down. Catachan Devils, not Catachan Devils. Cadians are here. Manticore Strike will go in. Does catch some of the Termagants. Meanwhile, oh, Raveners, you aren't so hidden anymore. Okay, now they're actually hidden once again.
Cannon upgrade underway.
What are they looking for? And why is there no one to detect them? The Catachan Devils were killed at some point, so there's actually no detection from our players on the blue team, from our Imperial Guard players. Bioplasma shot will go in, knocks over the Guardsman, and does some damage to the Leman Russ, but that damage will just be quickly repaired up. We have the combined repairs of the Guardsman as well as the bunker. So, I mean, we had a big victory point lead for our Guardsman players, but at this time, they're actually having trouble breaking through the Tyranid line. More Bioplasmas going in. So it's interesting how this matchup kind of evolves, where it very much turns into kind of a long-range warfare kind of thing. It's very much a standoff. Rather, it's not so much a brawl, it's more of a standoff. Alright, it might turn into a brawl, actually. No, tanks are just going to back up. Back up as they whittle down those Termagants. Carnifex might now be in a really bad position. I think, yeah, this has got to be a dead Carnifex. I think some of those tanks missed, but only one more tank shot would kill this. If the Vanquisher... Oh... If the Vanquisher... Okay, it's actually the Inquisitor who finishes it off. She switches out the crossbow bolt pistol in favor of the Inferno pistol. I would say for general damage purposes, the Inferno pistol is definitely better. And then it's more... Yeah, the crossbow bolt pistol doesn't scale that well unless there are some specific targets that you are using the crippling volley for late game, such as Terminators, but obviously Terminator's not going to be here. Bunker is taken out by the Tyranid formation. Some really low health Tyranid units here that honestly need to get out of here. The Hive Tyrant. Man, again, he's desperately putting into that capping unit situation. He does actually get the decap, and it's temporarily a 1-0 cap in favor of the Tyranid players. And Imperial Guard vehicle starting to get low. That Swarmlord really looking to move in. Swarmlord himself, though, is, you know, he's potentially in trouble. There's going to be a lot of anti-vehicle damage against him. One electroshock grub does connect, but that is going to be finally a dead Leman Russ. This Manticore decides to shoot a bit, but the Leman Russ is here. Not the Leman Russ. Oh my god, I'm mixing up Leman Russ with Swarmlord. The Swarmlord takes out the Manticore, but it will give up its own life in the process, having to go that deep behind enemy lines. Alright, looks like we do have some kind of sneaky back cap. Not even that sneaky, it's just a bunch of Guardsmen. They don't even have infiltration, but they'll actually get the decap. Oh no, there's going to be another dead Another dead Lehman Russ was actually finished off by the Zoanthrope there. That focused Warp Blast. Another Bioplasma Shot goes in, does some nice damage to that Lehman Russ. That Lehman Russ is actually moving forward now. A little brazen. Commissar, meanwhile, going for this victory point. He switched the war gear. I didn't see which war gear that he had there that he just switched the Emperor's Wrath from. Although typically, a lot of times with the Emperor's Wrath, it's actually not uncommon that you will see players switch this war gear in and out, since the Emperor's Wrath is an offensive ability, a very powerful one, which also means it has a long cooldown, and sometimes when the ability is on cooldown, people will switch to one of the other accessories for the Commissar, either getting the tankiness of Stubbornness or the support of Aura of Discipline. Ravener's going to teleport in. Teleport! How did Raveners teleport? They're going to burrow in. Meanwhile, a big Tyranid formation comes in, does knock over some guardsmen, and this is a big offensive by the Tyranid players. They're going to move forward. Tyranid formation. I don't know if the Tyranid formation actually hits the bunker, whereas normally if you just... Okay, it actually did connect with the bunker, and it will just kill it instantly. That is actually one of the nice use of the Tyranid formation. Normally, I view the Tyranid formation as the weakest nuke in the game, but against Tyranids, it's an easy bunker breaking tool. And man, talk about breaking. We just broke a Bane Blade right there. Pergatus will go in, and that's another dead Lehman Russ. Oh no, this is looking like... It's really looking like the Tyranids are finally managing to break through here. Big wins there, a lot of dead... Yeah, in fact, I very much see this as the victory for the Tyranids. I really can't see how the Guard will be able to come back from this one. Well, the Inquisitor's going to try. She activates Impenetrable. Is that... Yes, it's Impenetrable. War Gear is the Inquisitorial Mandate, which sounds better, and I often remember that better, but she'll get the decap, but she won't survive for it. That's kind of rough. At this point, especially... Yeah, it was a desperate play, and unfortunately for the TheTenso, I think it ended up costing them quite a bit. Because especially in this situation when they've already lost so many units, they really can't afford to lose many others, and that's a position that's going to be a hard position to get a revive on by either of the commanders. They basically really need to like win a fight, or at least push and zone out to allow a revive. All right, we're going to see the Commissar going here, though. He will have Stubbornness. Stubbornness not actually getting a huge amount of value at the moment, I would think. He's kind of by himself. All right, he's trying to move the Guardsman in position, I think, to maybe support the Commissar with Stubbornness. Commissar is managing to tank through this pretty well. I mean, there's actually not a whole lot of damage pressure against him. Mostly just the Barbed Strangler Warrior. Another Swarmlord coming out here, though. What are these Guardsman players going to do about it? They actually have a double cap for the time being, but how long can they keep that going? They're actually going to try to keep this going. That is going to be a Rocket Run. Can the Rocket Run finish off the Termagants? It does indeed finish off the Termagants. This is going to be, I don't think a Rocket Run. I think this is a Barrage. Oh, it's a Barrage. Unfortunately for the Barrage, you know, we have this Hive Tyrant immune to weapon knockback. I'm pretty sure the Creeping Barrage does weapon knockback. Otherwise, I think we would have a Hive Tyrant that got knocked over if it didn't. Our Imperial Guard players, they managed to get a few more victory points, but Ben literally has nothing on the field. He has a dead Lord General and no units whatsoever. So we actually have the concede by our Imperial Guard players. Game number 1, which was absolutely crazy, will go in favor of the Tyranids. Game number 2 of our Best-of-5 series will take place on Catharia Ruins. Ben, 1993, gonna be on that Lord General yet again. TheTenso will also be playing yet again on the same hero. He'll be playing as the Inquisitor. And Adila will be making a switch over to the Inquisitor. Their opponents, we're going to have RedReVenge playing as his signature Ravener Alpha. YZ going to be as that Hive Tyrant. And finally, it's going to be AssMan playing as the Lictor Alpha yet again. So we even have our players there actually saying the early game versus Sentinels is annoying. Eventually in that late game, obviously we did see the Tyranids were able to actually take it in the end in a long, hard-fought battle, but I do definitely feel like the early game here, I think, is pretty strong for the Guardsmen, mainly off the strength of the Sentinel, which I did talk about before. So we'll see how well that works out in this game as well. Hammer of the Witch is going to be used on the Hive Tyrant. Guardsman as well as the Sentinel will try to focus him down, do bring him down to about 60% of his health. Meanwhile, down here, we're going to have a Lictor Alpha up in close in melee. Uses Flesh Hook on the Inquisitor. But eventually the Lictor Alpha and the Hormagaunts are gonna have to go here. They're outnumbered, outgunned. There is a little bit of a flank here from, this is coming from YZ, but honestly, I'm not actually feeling that optimistic about YZ's flank. I think he's going into a situation where he's still a little bit outnumbered. Maybe if the support had come a little bit earlier. Sentinel does get the stun onto the Hive Tyrant. I think there was a Hammer of the Witch's stun in there as well. And we see the Hive Tyrant actually having so much trouble, really getting too much done. I think, particularly the Hive Tyrant, I think struggles quite a bit in the early game here. He's going to get focused down a lot. He's going to have trouble really just getting much done, getting into melee. When he does get into melee, he'll get stunned by things like Hammer of the Witches and the Sentinel Stomp. So that's why last game we saw those, that, actually the ranged Hive Tyrant build out of YZ. Hormagaunts getting pretty low here. All right, I think they will get out alive. It's actually a close call. No, they won't. So Sentinel oppression continuing to happen. Obviously, the Termagants here looking for the focus on the Guardsmen rather than the Sentinel, but the Guardsmen can always move back up. They don't have to take this. Whereas if the Termagants try to approach and try to keep pursuing the Guardsmen, then they'll just find themselves getting focused by the Sentinel. All right, we do see the Inquisitor in here. Tried to use the spell, but then it was canceled. She's going to use it again. It's going to be Hammer of the Witches on the Hive Tyrant yet again. He's actually having so much trouble dealing with that. He will be upgrading to the Bioplasma. I mean, the Bioplasma at this point, it's almost like to allow him to even just do something. So that at least if he can't get into melee, then at least he can shoot this big ball of plasma. All right, Spore Mine's actually getting some work done on the Guardsmen, so that will be Guardsmen in retreat. Sentinel is moving back as well, but the Sentinel has high speed, so of course it's going to be able to just get out of there just fine at the moment. All three Sentinels still alive, and again, that is an important metric, just making sure these Sentinels are alive. Like, obviously the last game ended up going in favor of the Tyranids anyway, but like if you start seeing Sentinels going down in Tier 1, it's often an indicator that the game is probably going to go in favor of the Tyranids. So our Guardsmen players keeping their Sentinels alive. Very good sign for them. By no means a guarantee of victory, but it's still a good sign. Smoke Bomb will be used by the Kadashan Devils, granting them some range damage resistance. And this is looking like a pretty good game for our Guardsmen players. Multi-laser turret even going to be set up. Rather strange multi-laser position, I gotta say. Like, it's not... I guess he was just planning to hold that area. Normally, though, multi-laser turret, certainly one of the positions you want to put it in is like right next to the power, and that's to both help you bash the power as well as kind of lock that area down. But that one was pretty far back where it couldn't actually really threaten the power. So you could still lock down that area, but ultimately, like, for what? So, double cap for our Imperial Guard players. I would say triple cap, but as it turns out, we are going to see a decap on the bottom by the Tyranids. 200 victory point lead for our Imperial Guard players. Heavy weapon team will shoot. It will get the suppression on that Ravener Alpha, and that's enough to force him off. Only the double Termagants are still left here. So, Tyranid players definitely not getting a hold of the top victory point at the moment. We are going to see, this is AssMan just trying to put some pressure on the generator farm, but at this point, I think the victory points might be a bigger deal than the generators. So we'll move back. Doesn't actually succeed in killing a single generator, and we're going to see the generator repaired by the guardsman. So ultimately a rather unfruitful push by AssMan. Meanwhile, the push here out of Ben 1993 proven to be a little bit more fruitful. He does succeed in killing a generator. Looks like we might have a bigger fight going on down right here. One of those Inquisitors does get pretty low. The other one does manage to land a Hammer of the Witches on the Hive Tyrant. She also has that crossbow bolt pistol, has been used. Crippling Volley will be used there. One of those Hormigaunt Brood, however, does get into melee, but is also just getting ripped apart. So that's one Hormigaunt Brood down. The rest of the Tyranids stuck in that Crippling Volley, which does finally expire. Crippling Poison used on the Inquisitor to slow her from getting into melee with the Warrior Brood. And there are going to be a bunch of Guardsman units being forced off here, but I think the double Sentinel and double Guardsman will eventually overpower the Ravener and this Hormigaunt Brood. One squad of Raveners here, but man, Imperial Guard players just being really, really oppressive in this game. The Sentinel play is just too much for our Tyranid players to handle. Sentinel moving forward. We are, of course, getting to tier 2. We do have two of our guardsman players making it there first, so they might have had the better end of those generator bashes, giving them that tech lead. With that tech lead, we might see some chimeras, especially, yeah, our Tyranid player is getting a little bit late here to tier 2. So if we actually do see some chimeras come out fast, particularly from Ben, also from the TheTenso, that could honestly be a big problem for our Tyranid players. Oh no, all these Tyranids bunched up. They got knocked down by Overliable. Warrior model is being popped. Synapse Backlash is triggered and knocks over the Termagants. Yeah, this is a lost fight here for RedReVenge. We're going to have some kind of counteroffensive here from YZ, but support's coming in. Oh no! Bioplasma actually detonates the IED. Kadchan Devils exploded on themselves. They don't die entirely, but they will have to get out of there. Eventually, though, it's still a one fight for our Imperial Guard players. Those Sentinels getting value. This one already upgraded to that missile launcher. Again, that missile launcher Sentinel, in my opinion, very, very strong against things like the Termagants. And again, we see the Termagant heavy builds. Now, typically in these days, oh, that's going to be a dead Lictor Alpha easily. Typically in 1v1 games, triple Hormigaunt is a lot more common than going for Termagant builds, but this is a team game. Team games generally are a lot more ranged focused, so it's not as surprising to see the Termagant focus. But again, I feel the Missile Launcher Sentinel actually quite strong against that. Oh, indeed, here are... Oh no, these are not Chimeras, these are Bane Wolves. Oh man. At first I thought they were Chimeras, but they are Bane Wolves. A squad did go down for the TheTenso, so silver linings there. But honestly, I think the Bane Wolf actually secures the game. We have the tech advantage, the timing is correct, and these Bane Wolves will just melt down these entire power farms. Where's the other Bane Wolf, though? It's here. It needs a little bit more support to really make it over there, because it's gonna be some time. But this one, yeah, that power farm is gone. It's a triple cap for the blue team, and it's actually just going to be a concede right there, which it does make sense, and that does mean our series is evened up. That is a win for the Imperial Guard, 1-1. Game number 3 in our Best-of-5 series is going to take place on Katrin Purification Planet. Our first player is going to be the TheTenso, playing as the Inquisitor. Ben 1993 going to be playing as the Lord Commissar this time, and finally it's going to be Adila playing as the Lord General. their opponents. We're going to have YZ going to be on the Lictor Alpha. AssMan going to be playing as the Hive Tyrant. And finally, it'll be RedReVenge on the Ravener Alpha. Alright then, Ravener Alpha looking to take that natural victory point in favor of the Tyranids early on. Sentinels coming out already for the TheTenso and Ben 1993. As we've seen so far, Sentinel is something that is highly influential in this matchup. Quite strong against the Termagants. And we do see that for the Tyranid players, we have very much the Termagant heavy builds. The 1v1 meta for Tyranids is mostly triple Hormagaunts, but as we see in team games and also perhaps against Imperial Guard, it's all about those double Termagants. Termagants right over here shooting at those Guardsmen. As the Guardsmen a little bit too far forward, a little bit exposed. Normally, of course, you want the Sentinel really being in front. You want them being the ones to tank the damage because any damage they take can just be healed back up. So they want to see if they can score model kills while only trading out Sentinel health. Meanwhile, that Hive Tyrant realized that he was way too close there. Actually getting pretty close to going down, but I think he'll be okay. Commissar, meanwhile, going to just chase after these Termagants. Yeah, there's actually not a whole lot these Termagants can do here. If anything, I'm surprised the Sentinel does not pursue further. It actually really, really could and continue to just bleed those Termagants a little bit more. Instead, going to go for the decap on the Requisition. Meanwhile, down here, we're going to see some sneaky Hormagaunts getting a decap on the natural victory point for the blue team, our Imperial Guard players. Sentinel now pressing forward. Sentinel, of course, probably just going to be looking to, get that instant destruction on the tunnel, but just by stepping on it. And now just going to move back from that. Meanwhile, Hormagaunts, still more of these back-capping Hormagaunts. They will also get the decap on a Requisition point. Did not actually look for the full cap on the victory point. Decide instead that they wanted to disrupt the Imperial Guard players' economy. Meanwhile, Guardsmen are back here as well. They are about to get flanked by the Hormagaunts, but the Sentinel is chasing after them. Guardsmen are not showing any signs of movement. The Hormagaunts may have half health, and they may be being focused down by the Sentinel, but they also do a lot of damage, and as we see, they're just going to nom on all these Guardsmen. Guardsmen already at about as much health as the Hormagaunts, but eventually the Hormagaunts are too low, and they need to retreat as well. Guardsmen are actually kept in there to provide some repair support for this Sentinel. Meanwhile, over here, we are going to see this Commissar doing a special attack against some pipes. Sentinel being threatened at the moment. A lot of range damage coming in from those Raveners against it. Meanwhile, the Hormagaunts also going to be just nomming on yet more Guardsmen, just like they did on the other side of the map from a different squad. Moving forward. These Hormagaunts, though, going in a little bit too deep. They need to retreat really soon, otherwise they do risk being wiped. All right, at this point, Imperial Guard as such a ranged-heavy army. Ooh, they might still go down here. No. Imperial Guard is such a ranged-heavy army. It does not have great early retreat-killing potential. Retreat, of course, giving you that damage resistance to ranged fire. Victory points 470 to 464. So still looking good for still looking good for both teams, actually. They're pretty even. Hive Tyrant trying to move in here. Guardsmen will find themselves getting pincered, so they do just decide to retreat. Alright, meanwhile, we do have a Flesh Hook, just on a lone Guardsman model, but does also... Oh, right. Going for the Sergeant. Hooking in the Sergeant, because the Sergeant will die last, and you can do a lot of damage on the Sergeant when you hook him in. So that is a Guardsman squad down for Adila. Adila looking pretty thin in terms of his army. He is going to get some Catachan Devils to try to support him. Man, Generators put down... not at a great time by Ben. I don't think he entirely realizes what's going on right here. I mean, one Generator was put down, then immediately killed by the units that were here. Another Generator also suffers the same fate. Lictor Alpha just trying to buy some space by zoning the Imperial Guard army out so that the rest of these ranged units pick themselves up a third Generator. That's 300 requisition down the drain for our Imperial Guard players. So why is he actually saying another Guardsman squad down? So he might have actually gotten 2 Guardsman squad kills. As he is saying, gotta snipe them Sergeants, which is what we saw there. That he flesh hooked the Sergeant in The Sergeant is guaranteed to die last, and as long as he's there, he can just be damaged, and the squad will continue to take damage. A lot of range damage coming in right here. Hormagaun's also looking to approach. And this is actually a pretty good situation because normally you would want the Sentinel to just stop the Hormagaunts on approach, but the Sentinel's so low on hit points that it can't quite afford to. So the Catachan Devils will come here to try to help out with that. Catachan Devils not even using their Shotgun Blast at the moment. That's a little bit strange to see them not use their Shotgun Blast and not force melee. I would have liked to see them do one of them. Actually, I'm pretty sure. I'm still pretty sure that they do more damage in melee than they do in ranged. Yeah, so I still would have liked to see them do force melee there. Inquisitor looking pretty low right there, trying to get that decap, but suffering way too much damage under the pressure of that. Oh wow, this is actually funny. This is a Ravener Alpha. He's supposed to be burrowed. Instead, he's like infiltrated. That's definitely some kind of visual bug. All right. Oh, Crippling Volley goes in, pinning those Raveners in place. Ravener Alpha is also in there, and he will just retreat out of there. Victory point lead now for our Tyranid players, but the Guardsmen, they are answering back here, and they will be getting a decap on the contested victory point, which I think they will manage to convert into a full cap. Meanwhile, up here, we are going to see Adila certainly getting some gaunt kills, looking to see what other damage he can do. He's going to plant he's trying to plant an IED. Is he just going to detonate the IED? Yeah, he'll just detonate the IED. We'll see if he can get any kills on the generators from this. Should at least be one here. Might only be one, though. Sentinel tries to finish it off, so the Sentinel does finish it off, but it's just the one generator. Heavy weapon team slowing down that Hive Tyrant. That Hive Tyrant upgraded with the improved Synapse to give units near him just a bit more health. Adila will be forced off here, which does mean he might suffer yet another generator bash. Adila looking a little bit thin again in terms of his army, whereas Wisely does have that big army. Warriors on top of the double Termagants, the Hormagaunts, as well as the Raveners. So, I mean, we see just how quickly they burn down these generators right here. That's like 1, 2, 3, I think 4 volleys gets it. Raveners do retreat because they decide they don't want to lose a model. Lictor Alpha's going to come in here, though, decide to see that he wants to kill a model against this Lord General, and now he's just idling. And he just retreats. That's a little bit of an interesting one. I don't know if maybe YZ just wants to go somewhere else, but, I mean, most of these are high health squads, so a little bit curious to see that retreat. All right, Raveners will be called in by RedReVenge. Double Raveners out of RedReVenge is a lot of range damage. Inquisitor looking to move in again with that crossbow bolt pistol. And the crossbow bolt pistol is another thing where I think part of the idea of this, certainly the crippling volley is definitely the strongest thing out of it, and it's a very strong ability. We even see it's being used here to make it so that the Termagants can't dodge these Sentinel missiles, and all that burst damage from the Sentinel proving to be too much. But, of course, just another big... It might seem minor, but another important advantage of that Inquisitor with the crossbow bolt pistol is that 30 piercing DPS. It's not a crazy good number, but it's a decent number, and it allows the Inquisitor to do respectable range damage in a matchup where it's going to be a lot harder for it to get into melee. Alright, this is going to look like a pretty strong power bash, I think, out of Adila. It looks like it's going to be answered, though. He already got one generator. I think he gets a second. Raveners are going to burrow in, though. They get the disruption on both the Catachan Devils as well as the Guardsmen. Catachan Devils now potentially in a bad position. They are getting snared by the Crippling Poison. They use their Shotgun Blast, but they are going to have to retreat out of there. Heavy Turret is placed down, though, by Adila. This placement on the Heavy Turret is... I'm kind of questioning it. It depends on how much range does the Heavy Turret truly have. Chances are it actually has pretty good range, but it also probably needs to be sighted for. It also needs to be supported. And unfortunately, I think with this call-in, I think this is going to be too much, And that should be, yeah, it's going to be a Venom Brood. If anything, I'm surprised that we don't see more Venom Broods out of our players, considering we have such ranged heavy Tyranid builds. Hive Tyrant just barely making out of there alive. Basically, we have our Tyranid players. Pretty much all three of them have at least double Termagant and a single Ravener, except for RedReVenge, who actually has 2 Raveners. So a Venom Brood would honestly be very good for all 3 of our players at the moment. However, we see AssMan as well as RedReVenge instead choosing to focus on the Zoanthrope. And I don't dislike the Zoanthrope either. If anything, I would kind of like both. But the double Zoanthrope at the same time is also quite powerful. In fact, I think there's actually not a whole lot that our Guardsmen players really have to answer the Zoanthrope. What do they have? I think the best they might have are these Assault Kit Stormtroopers. They want to see, ideally, they would want to see if they can use their infiltration to get like some kind of flanking angle, and then see if they can focus down the Zoanthrope to pressure it into retreating. Unfortunately, the kill pressure on the Zoanthrope really isn't that strong, even with that. Normally, you would want more something like, I don't know, like Assault Marines that can actually jump in after the Zoanthrope and then really put melee pressure on it. But we're just not going to get anything like that from the Imperial Guard. Ranged Hive Tyrant as well. So pretty much everyone converting into range. IED goes off, does some decent damage. 2 IEDs also here as well. Catachan Devils do use, not Old Reliable, I'm pretty sure they use their Shotgun Blast there, or actually was it Old Reliable? I'm not even sure which, even though I guess at that range they both kind of do the same thing, which is just the ranged knockback. But either way, that's going to be a grenade. Alright, we're the target here. This is the Chimera. Chimera is actually currently unanswered, because again, that's also why I would have liked to honestly see the Venom Brood. At the time, there weren't really vehicles for our Tyranid players to deal with, but now there is. And YZ is the only one with a Venom Brood, and he's on the other side of the map, so this Chimera is completely unanswered. Heavy weapon teams will come out, set up, suppress these Termagants. They'll actually just retreat before that can happen. Ravener Alpha going to retreat as well. He's got a few upgrades. The Hardened Carapace, which we've actually already seen him use, where we had that humorous infiltration effects on him when he's just supposed to be burrowed underground. We also have the Synapse Aura. Synapse Aura granting basically just increased damage by 25%. That's really nothing to sneeze at.
Victory point acquired by our mates, sir.
So YZ picking up a generator bash. At some point, though, I think especially once he gets more into like tier 3, I think YZ, as well as Adila, need to actually move away from that right lane and start fighting over the contested victory point. All right, Hero was revived here. Inquisitor is back up. Autocannon from the guard going to be shooting in, so Tyranids having some trouble making their approach here. I think with the Zoanthrope here, I think I want to use the focused Warp Blast to snare the Chimera, and then that's like the go button. Then the rest of the Tyranids just push forward. Guardsmen kind of just backing up anyway. We still don't see any focused Warp Blast, but I think it's not. I think the Zoanthrope is not fully in range to get that onto the Chimera. However, we might see a dead Inquisitor there. Inquisitor not really focused on. Okay, there she indeed does go down in the end. So in the end, we are going to see the Guardsmen pushed off. Tyranids do make a successful push in the middle, and boy, do they need it, because they are starting to suffer a deficit in terms of victory points. In fact, some sneaky Stormtroopers even took the natural victory point away from the Tyranids as the Tyranids pick up the contested victory point, so they are still continuing to lose victory points. It was even to start out, but we now have nearly an over 200 victory point lead for our Guardsmen players, very soon to be more than 200 victory points.
Won't be long, sir.
That Sentinel still trying to shoot some missiles in. Unfortunately, that Sentinel missile launcher not particularly effective against this Hive Tyrant. Hive Tyrant fully upgraded. We do have that improved Synapse Venom Cannon to make it a ranged Hive Tyrant, and the Warp Field just to make him tankier. So retreats going on in both directions. Catachan, Devils, Termagants, Hive Tyrants. Just one Hive Tyrant, technically. Tyranids will regain their natural victory point back. And could this be a triple cap? No. We will have the victory point decapped for the Guard. Their natural victory point, that is. Of course, the Guardsmen will have to take over for the Sentinel, who cannot complete the full cap. I don't actually know why he wasn't just... why someone else wasn't put on capping duty to begin with. Guardsmen players, however, looking to gain back the contested as well. And they are the ones in the lead. It's very much on the Tyranids to make the push here. Man, Ravener Alpha going in, he's already so low. He does have the Corrosive Devourer, and a war gear that in the past has been difficult for me to say. Does grant him plasma damage as well as anti-vehicle damage. He's so low, he's just going in like that. One Ravener Brood is going to go down. That was a Ravener Brood dead from AssMan, I believe. I'm actually not even 100% sure. We're having squads die all over the place now. I think a Zoanthrope was killed at some point, because I'm pretty sure AssMan did have double Zoanthropes. And while the Raveners here, they're trying to fight head-to-head against the Stormtroopers, but the Missile Launcher Sentinels are helping them out. Missile Launcher Sentinel, unfortunately missing there. Old Reliable does slow down the Termagants, or was it the Shotgun Blast? I'm only seeing the knockback and not looking at the rest of it. And there is, oh, that had to actually be Old Reliable, because the Shotgun Blast should also come with suppression. Of course, there is a difference in the visual effects where with Old Reliable you can vaguely and faintly see a few grenades fly through the air. But in times where I only kind of catch the effect of it, when I see the knockback just through the corner of my vision when my eyes are focused on something else, I actually haven't had a few times when I was having trouble telling whether it was Old Reliable or the explosive shot. Focus Warp Blast used on the Chimera, but there's not going to be any follow-up to that, I don't think. I mean, I guess the Hive Tyrant going to try to move forward. I don't think it's enough. Yeah, I mean, he's going to try that. Well, he might be enough if there are no repairs for it. All right, it's not enough still. Hive Tyrant instead, he's going to go down 100%. So he really overstayed his welcome. Yeah, that was a misplay by him. Hormagaunts, do they get out of here? It's so close. Oh, one. I think they had one. They certainly had two. Inquisitor will go down.
The requisition point's in trouble.
Unfortunately, it does look like we might have a sound bug. Bane Blade's going to be coming out for our... yeah, Bane Blade's going to be coming out for our Guardsmen players. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what's going to happen here. Alright, the game is ended. Now, unfortunately, it did look like they said that the sound bug is actually classified as a loss. And I think based on what I have in my files, I think this game is actually considered a loss for the Imperial Guard. So I think that does put our Tyranids up 2-1 in this series. A little unfortunate if that is indeed how things happen in the end with a sound bug, but yeah, it's just one of the problems of this old unsupported game. Well, nevertheless, we do still have some more games to go on. So let's go. All right, game number 4 in our Best-of-5 series will be taking place on Grey Sark Undercity. Our first player going to be TheTenso, playing as that Inquisitor yet again. Ben, 1993, will be playing as the Lord General this time, and it's going to be Adila playing as the Lord Commissar this time. Why not at least see him there? Their opponents, we're going to start off with AssMan on the Hive Tyrant, YZ playing as the Lictor Alpha, and finally, RedReVenge playing as the big red ball, the Ravener Alpha. I wonder why that happens. I don't know. But anyway, maybe we're going to see some engagements here between the Lictor and the Lord General. Indeed, the Lictor will be looking out for that, just looking to see if he can get some early bleed on the Lord General. This might not actually be the best use of his time, especially with the... Alright, he does hook a Stormtrooper model forward, and that actually helps to get a kill on that Stormtrooper model. So actually, that's not bad. I was going to say, I think the Sentinel can kind of just focus fire the Lictor, make things a little bit harder for him, but picking up that kill on the retinue member of the Lord General, I think makes it worth it. Ooh, a lot of pressure here. Oh no! Oh no! No! Okay. Ouch. I kind of talked like so many in the past games about how, like, the expectation for the Sentinel is it's definitely expected to stay alive throughout Tier 1. Tier 2, you want to try to keep it alive. Then Tier 3, if you kept it alive Tier 3, it definitely lived longer than it was expected to. But for it to die that early, that's a problem. That's a problem. And it's not like a Guardian Squad where it's like, all right, if it lost a Guardian Squad then that early, then at least, like, you're just rebuying a squad that you never had to reinforce. Oh no, the Commissar goes down as well. But it shouldn't be too hard of a revive. Still, yeah, I mean, some people saying that path block, the way those Hormigons just surrounded that Sentinel, and especially the Sentinel also, of course, it was killed so early on in the game, was surrounded by the Hormigons. It didn't even have Stomp. Adila actually going for a double Sentinel build, though. So I had talked about the double Sentinel before. Does that actually hit the field? It seems to be stuck out there. We do indeed have a double Sentinel. Houston, we've got double Sentinel out of Adila. So we'll see if this ends up being effective, and I certainly think it can be. It's definitely very, very strong in the early game, in my opinion, or at least it has been in the past. Again, I don't know if... We didn't see them get it that much in any of the other games this series. This is the first time we're going to see it. So, typically, I've already talked about the strengths of the Sentinel. Basically, that it's tanky, it basically outtrades because it doesn't lose, it doesn't bleed, and then there's the synergy with the Guardsman. The main weakness, in my opinion, of the Sentinel is that the DPS is fairly low. But when you got two of them, well, the DPS isn't so low anymore. You do have to... This is a little bit harder on your micro, since you have to micro 2 Sentinels. For new players, sometimes microing 1 is hard enough. And then, of course, you also have to split your repair support instead of providing all your repair support to one Sentinel. Meanwhile, it looks like there might be a little bit more happening over here. Another Sentinel possibly caught in a bad position. I think it needs to keep moving back. It's separated from the Guardsmen. However, Hormigons will be scared off. Old Reliable going in. Because I think we have 2 guard players right here, and this is actually just going to be a retreat from AssMan as he does call out the double. So that was Ben, as well as TheTenso. Meanwhile, down on the bottom, oh no! I absolutely cursed him. He already lost one of those Sentinels. This is already looking very, very suspect for our guards and players. Like, they had 2 really, really early Sentinel deaths in this game. I don't think they had any early Sentinel deaths in any of the other games. Like, I think every Sentinel before this game was able to make it to Tier 2 alive. This is strange. Alright, whatever was going on there, it's probably done. So, a little bit of a rough start for our guards and players. Again, very much expected builds out of our Tyranid players with the double term against yet again. Going into the Raveners. All 3 Tyranid players, again, same thing. Does look like there might have been some generator bashing going on right here. Meanwhile, heavy weapon team trying to get that suppression, but it will be burrowed upon by the Raveners, and we'll have to get on out of there. It's going to have to be full retreats from everyone here. Crossbow, bolt pistol probably does make it a little bit hard for any retreat kills to happen. And indeed, one of the retreat kills actually happened on YZ's Terminators. Not Terminators, Termagants. Big Old Reliable go in. So these Old Reliables are actually regularly catching like 3 squads at a time. They're so bunched up by our Tyranid players. Grenade's going to go in on that Ravener tunnel. Inquisitor going to have to retreat yet again. We see that crossbow bolt pistol. We've already seen it, actually, as there was a crippling volley that we did see a little bit earlier. All right. Our Imperial Guard players seem to be stabilizing for the moment. I'm worried for this. Oh, no. Oh, this is another dead Sentinel. Oh, no. Oh, I cursed them. Yeah, that's... We're starting to get to yikes tier of Sentinel losses. Alright, that will be a bunch of guardsmen forced off.
Requisition points being acquired by our allies.
Alright, here is our guardsman counterattack, but 2 generators will go down before they are able to force off the Tyranids. They're not really getting in range, actually, of these Termagants or Raveners to really do much about it. I think just trying to set up the heavy weapon team because, I mean, with all the units that are here from the Tyranids, it would absolutely be overwhelming range damage. When it's mostly just Tenso right here. Does look like we're seeing Ben trying to come up to help, but his guardsmen, yeah, his guardsmen aren't there. So the Tyranid players would definitely have an advantage in terms of range firepower. Meanwhile, down here, guardsmen, as well as the Inquisitor. Nope, just kidding, that's the Lord Commissar. We'll be taking care of this generator. No problem. This one's the Inquisitor. Trying to get that victory point decap, but she will back up once we see this big Tyranid range blob approaching. I mean, this Tyranid range blob, we don't even see a Venom Brood for either of these players, but it's honestly just so many ranged units that, like, if they focus on someone, they're just going to do so much damage so quickly. These guardsmen getting way too close. Oh, no. And I think the Sergeant was pulled in. Oh, God. That might be a dead guardsman squad right here with the way that Sergeant was pulled in. So we really see how YZ is really taking advantage of just knowing how those mechanics work, knowing that the guardsman sergeant dies last. So if you hook in the sergeant, it's very, very powerful. Because he won't die until the entire squad dies, but he will just continue to take damage on behalf of the entire squad as long as he is in range to take damage. Alright, meanwhile, on the bottom, yeah, I mean, it should be Adila in this lane. He's going to try to set up his heavy weapon team. At least at the moment, the Raveners aren't here, so they won't really be able to counter it just yet. But I think Adila's got to be having a tough time. I mean, he's lost 2 Sentinels. Looks like an accidental full retreat out of YZ.
Processing the lad's request. We're in the middle of upgrades.
Hearing a few explosions going off. Mostly just kind of waiting to see what's going to happen here between Adila and and RedReVenge. This is looking a little bit questionable. Adila has some support. It's been 1993 making that rotation. this Ravener Alpha currently completely undetected. But I guess realizing that he can't really go for the unburrow to engage now that, you know, he was getting doubled. So he's getting doubled. It does mean that, oh, it does mean up on top, Tenso will get doubled. Yeah, he is indeed getting doubled. Let's see if he can hold his ground. I mean, he does have the heavy weapon team set up. However, the Raveners do get behind it. Chimera is now going to get hit by the Electroshock Grub. That does put the Chimera in a bit of a bad position. I think units might need to get out of here to support this. Oh, no. Venom Brute called in behind it? Oh, my God. That's actually that's an absolutely brutal play. Yeah, that was rough. That was a rough one for the Tenso. Rough McGruff. All right, guards and squad right there is going to go down. Oh, man, big losses for the Tenso. Barely keeps the Sentinel alive. I mean, at this point, like, it's, yeah, that was, he absolutely did get wrecked there. So, yeah, I mean, our Tyranid players, they are honestly just outplaying our Imperial Guard players, and our Imperial Guard players definitely having a few kind of like whoopsie moments. That one where Tenso lost the Chimera was not a whoopsie moment. That was actually just he got doubled, and they just really punished him really hard for not getting out of that double earlier. The Sentinel losses, though, the Sentinel losses have all kind of been like yikes moments. All right, this is going to be some guardsmen in full retreat right here. As retreat for Ben 1993. All right, Adila's trying to make something happen bottom. Commissar does have the stubbornness. She does also have Bionic Eye. And he trying to see if they can take down that Ravener Alpha. Ranged fire from the Ogryns is actually enough. Ogryns actually do decent range damage. They do something like 13, I think 13 point something DPS per model in ranged combat. So that means as a squad, that's like, oh man, math is hard. What is that, like 50-ish? A little bit less. Might be more, actually. Either way, the range damage of Ogryns is not to be underestimated. All right, this should be a Creeping Barrage. Oh, but one squad of guardsmen getting so low. Creeping Barrage is going to knock in the Lictor Alpha. Lictor Alpha trying to get up, but will just find himself getting knocked in again. This Creeping Barrage might not have done quite enough. I mean, it's knocking the Lictor Alpha forward, but what is that going to achieve? That kind of just gives the Lictor Alpha free engage, where he's just in there, can soon tie up the heavy weapon team if he wants. Doesn't have to. Sentinel gets really low. And artillery shot goes in from the artillery spotters. Man, I just realized I think this is the first time we've seen any artillery spotters. But I think it makes sense given that, you know, you don't actually have any setup teams from the Tyranids, so artillery spotters not quite as needed as they are in other matchups. And of course they can just do some disruption, but I think our players have been more content to use Catachans if they just want the disruption at range. Because the Catachan Devils kind of offer a lot more outside of the disruption. All right, there will be some generators killed by Adila. He's going to try to get the Ogryns out of here. No, he's going to commit to this fight. He uses Inspired Determination, but then the Ogryns will get snared. However, they're still in here trying to make things happen. Yeah. It was interesting. It was fun for a second, but that was questionable. All right, Commissar's out alive. Ogryns, and the Ogryns, actually, the only model they lost was the one that was executed by the Commissar. Focused Warp Blast on the Sentinel, and the last Sentinel has been killed. I mean, at this point, it's a little bit more expected that in Tier 2, a Sentinel will be killed, but more and more it certainly feels less even than last game, and certainly less even than Game 1. Game 2 was was definitely actually a stomp in favor of the Imperial Guard, but this so far has felt like the roughest game for the Guard. They are also up on the ropes, as if they do lose this one, the series will be over. Autocannon heavy weapon team certainly laying in a lot of damage, but taking a lot on its own. Double zone thrope yet again. Look at these stormtroopers running around all fast. That's definitely from that move from the Lord General. So we'll see if these stormtroopers can get some of that value and actually get some kills on those zone thropes. Last game I didn't actually witness many of the zone thrope kills, but some of them definitely did happen. Oh, Guardsman squad. I'm definitely witnessing this Guardsman kill, however. Heavy weapon team is setting up, but it's not going to achieve too much at this time. It will eventually be overrun. It will be burrowed upon by the Raveners, even if they have the refractor field to make sure that they can't get disrupted. The Ravener can still just tie them up, and then they can't shoot. Okay, we are going to see our first Leman Russ of Game 4. Going to be out for Ben 1993. Ben hasn't suffered quite as much as his teammates, but, I mean, certainly for him, Ben 1993, as the mid lane player, is the one who is responsible for making lane switches, which is kind of tough. I've always personally felt that playing mid lane, I know it sounds like, what are we talking about, League of Legends here, but, you know, we do have lanes in this game, unofficially. Playing mid lane in team games, in my opinion, is a huge responsibility. Huge responsibility. Oh, Venom Brood, not Venom Brood. That's actually Barb Strangler from the Carnifex going in there. Obviously, that Barb Strangler Carnifex doing a lot of burst damage, and why shouldn't it? It is a tier 3 unit. It better do some damage. So Leman Russ moving out. This one's going to be a Vanquisher Leman Russ. So again, Vanquisher Leman Russ, not hugely effective against infantry. Primarily meant to be used against the vehicles. However, there it does look like a kill was actually had on the Venom Brood. But ideally, this Leman Russ... Yeah, this Leman Russ actually still managing to hit infantry just fine, seemingly, with the Vanquisher Cannon. But that Vanquisher Cannon definitely primarily... Actually, you know what? Vanquisher Cannon, that does do explosive damage. Actually, should not have much trouble at all hitting infantry, but I don't think it has much in terms of splash. And the long range is meant to be for taking down vehicles. At long range. Oh, look at that. Oh, wow. I think one of those Garden Squads actually just got wiped. I think both of them are going to get wiped. 8. 3. No, manages just barely to stay alive. Leman Russ backing up here. Manticore is out on the field for the Tenso. We'll see what he can do with that. We'll also see if maybe Tenso can maybe complete any, solo missions. Not solo missions. I would actually, if anything, I feel I want to see both of those Stormtrooper squads go together, seeing if the combined firepower of 2 Stormtrooper squads could be enough to burst down a zone thrope.
The Inquisitor's gear is on its way. That upgrade isn't complete yet.
And maybe even get a kill on it. Inquisitor will not complete that cap, just realizing that. Only 564 hit points? Yeah, she's not going to last too long against that Swarmlord. Call-in's going to be used. It's going to be a Leman Russ call-in from Ben. Ben 1993, the only one with Leman Russes at the moment. Adila is actually in such a rough situation, being stuck in Tier 2. Manticore Strike's going in, unfortunately completely missing everything. Yeah, I mean, again, that's kind of why the Manticore scene is a little bit more questionable. Second Manticore Strike, yeah, those were 2 complete whiffs on the Manticores. So that's why, again, these are a bit higher level players, and we're seeing why Those Manticores, not always necessarily desirable. Unfortunately, this is also probably a dead Manticore. Electroshock grub goes on it. Doesn't kill it by itself, but just a little bit of follow-up fire from the Venom Brood proves to be enough. Well, where's the other Manticore? That one's in a pretty safe position. Yeah, this is looking pretty convincing for the Tyranids at the moment. They're about to have a triple cap. They're pushing the guard into their base. Ben's the only one with tier 3 units. 2 Ravener models do go down there. This Inquisitor moving in with that Inferno pistol. And the Hive Tyrant is going to probably find himself in retreat pretty soon. Hormagaunts, they decide now's the time to fight. Nope, they will, of course, just retreat out of there, but it's still a triple cap for... That is a rocket run. No, that's a Creeping Barrage. Creeping Barrage that ultimately hits nothing. Oh god, such big misses. Okay, this time, Manticore does connect. Does connect. It does actually do quite a number on the Termagants. Doesn't look like RedReVenge is interested in retreating just yet, though, even though one of his squads of Termagants is really, really low on hit points. He is about to find himself getting doubled as Ben tries to rotate back down to the bottom. Oh, man. We're really out of time here. Like, our Imperial Guard players need to make a move fast or this series is over. Tyranniformation, though, does scare... Oh, God! Oh, that was enough to call it, and that was actually quite a picture in the end to see this. Yeah, that was quite unexpected. And this flying model right here. Alright then, that will be the end of the series. Tyranids will be taking it 3-1. I do hope you enjoyed it, and have a good night.